Devin Nunes is joining us now live. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for joining us.
It's great to be with you tonight, Wolf. Thank you.
So why did you meet with a source on the White House the evening before you came out in that news conference?
Yeah, Wolf, it's actually pretty common, probably at least once a week, if not more than that. We have to go to the executive branch in order to read classified intelligence. So that could be the White House grounds, it could be the White House, it could be the Pentagon, it could be CIA. There's a number of places we go. And so I think Jake Tapper reported on this morning. I had spoke to him. This is something I had been working on for a very long time. I was concerned about Americans' identities being either not masked properly or in fact being unmasked in intelligence reports. This actually goes back to before President Trump's famous tweet, as you know, that he talked about putting whether or not he was wiretapped of Trump Tower. And so I'd been working this for a long time with many different sources and needed a place that I could actually finally go because I knew what I was looking for and I could actually get access to what I needed to see. But
did you use that SCIF, and a SCIF is the acronym for a sensitive compartmented information facility, did you use that SCIF on the White House grounds? Why not use a SCIF? You have plenty of them up on the House side and the Senate side on Capitol Hill.
Well, that is a very good question. So here's the problem. The Congress has not been given this information, these documents, and that's the problem. So because this is executive branch, it was distributed widely through the executive branch. This was from November, December, and January, and these were reports. Just let me reiterate: this had nothing to do with Russia, nothing to do with the Russia investigation. There is no way for the folks that I had been working with to actually to bring this forward to light. There was no way I could view that because they couldn't get it to the House Intelligence Committee. Now, we have requested on March 15th, we sent a letter over to the appropriate intelligence agencies asking that they provide us for all the Americans' names that were unmasked in November, December, and January, actually going back to June. And so we're hopeful that we're going to begin to get through those documents, those names. We think that the NSA is providing the information sometime this week. It'll take our investigators a while to go through it. But the bottom line is this, is that we have to protect the identities of Americans who are picked up in incidental collection, no matter who that is. It's one of the most important roles of the House Intelligence Committee. We are supposed to be doing oversight.
So just to be precise, the information you saw over at the the Eisenhower Executive Office building right next door to the West Wing of the White House, that information originated with the National Security Agency, the NSA?
Well, I'm not going to tell you where I was at on the grounds because, of course, those are all classified facilities. But what I will say is that across the whole IC, we are very interested in seeing information across the whole IC.
IC is the intelligence community.
The intelligence community. Sorry for using acronyms like this, but the National Security Agency is primarily our #1 source for our military operations that collect intelligence, collect signals intelligence. So they're the big player in all of this. We're still going to need more information from the rest of the IC, including the FBI. But right now we're just happy that the NSA is working overtime to get the committee this information because we want to make sure that all Republicans and all Democrats can get access to this.
But, Mr. Chairman, if you're trying to protect sources and methods, and all of us understand that, did you think it might be conspicuous for the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee to be visiting the White House complex at night? Wouldn't that by itself risk exposing your source?
Well, don't believe everything you read, Wolf. It wasn't actually that exciting. I've read a lot of reports that aren't true.
Well, tell us what is true.
#1, I wasn't sneaking on. It wasn't at night. It was in the middle of the sun was out. And I actually stopped and talked to several people along the way. Many foreign dignitaries were there, some I recognized. I said hello, had conversations with them. So nobody was sneaking around. All it was just a place where I had to go to be able to review this information.
Who cleared you for admission?
Well, I'm not going to get into how that process works, but the White House has a process for.
But was it a White House staffer?
Look, well, if I'm not going to get into sources and methods and how we review documents, especially classified information, I mean, this happens all over the executive branch, and it's quite common.
Because eventually these records, you know how it works. They're going to come out anyhow, right?
Yeah, and look, as I said, this is nothing new, and it has nothing to do with Russia.
So why not
why
disclose it now if it's going to be released in the near term?
Because look, this is not something. Sources and methods are kept very confidential. We invite whistleblowers to come forward, and in fact, we've had many people come forward to the committee in recent weeks because there's been so much attention on this, and we want to continue to encourage that. If we start disclosing sources and methods, who's ever going to come forward to the committee to bring us information?
In addition to going to that secure room to look over these documents, did you have other meetings at the White House? Did you meet with the president or any of his aides while you were there that night?
No, and in fact, I'm quite sure that I think people in the West Wing had no idea that I was there. Look, I go over there a lot. I go over there often for meetings and briefings, to meet foreign dignitaries, all those sorts of things. I go to all the agencies. It's part of the role of oversight. And all of our members go to the executive branch. But
you understand how it would look. The next day you're coming out, you're giving the president some comfort, and he said, you know, he was vindicated, if you will. You understand how all of this looks and why it's causing such an uproar.
I do. I completely do. But the fact of the matter remains that this is information that I had long before Mr. Trump even made his famous tweet. So, and look, if I really wanted to, I could have snuck onto the grounds late at night and probably nobody would have seen me, but I wasn't trying to hide. In fact, I stopped and talked to several people there just along the way, including, like I said, many foreigners.
By holding the meeting on the White House grounds, it makes it appear that someone in the administration was coordinating the release of this information to you. Is that not the case?
No, it's not the case. Like I said, this is something I've been working for a long time, and I had to find a way for me to have access to the information because we couldn't get the information down to the committee, and this was a way I could facilitate me getting that information.
You've described your source as a whistleblower. Was this person going around someone above him or her to provide you this information? The person who shared this information allowed you to access this information, have clearance from his or her supervisors?
I know that it's all Washington intrigue to find out about the sources and methods, and I'll say the same thing I said to everybody else, and that is that, look, we're just not going to get in discussing
well, when I hear the word whistleblower, you were the one who mentioned whistleblower, it usually means someone who's not authorized but feels that person feels has a responsibility to share this kind of information.
So we have a lot of people who give us information to our committee. There's lots of different ways that you can come forward. You can ask for official whistleblower protections. You can be an informant to the committee. You can just provide information to the committee. A lot of it, there's nothing wrong. If we ask questions to people within the IC, to officials, they're supposed to give the oversight committee the answers. And we want to encourage that activity. We don't want to discourage it. And any time I start to talk about who, what, why, when, where did I go, it's not healthy, and it shouldn't be discussed in the public.
Here's the question that jumped out at me. Why would you need to brief the White House on what you yourself have called executive branch documents?
Well, because remember, we get a lot of documents from the executive branch, whether it's the Department of Defense or CIA or others. We have to go to those agencies a lot of times to see them. I wasn't planning on going to the White House the next day, but after I was able to read what I read, I realized it had nothing to do with Russia, but had everything to do with individuals whose names were included into intelligence reports. I was very concerned, and I thought that the President of the United States should know, and that's why I went and told him.
Let me turn to the contents of the reports that you've seen, and obviously we have not seen those reports. Do they specifically name the President or quote him by name, otherwise known as unmasking?
So what I've said before on this, Wolf, is that we do know there was additional unmasking done. And I'll leave it at that. Hopefully we can get the agencies to get that information to us. In addition, there was information, it looked like it was legally collected, but it was information on the President Trump and his transition. Because these are clearly classified reports, and so until we can get all of them, but I can tell you it was very clear that it was on President Trump and his transition team.
What about current White House officials, Trump campaign staffers, Trump family members, and all of this happened after the election, during the transition, not during the campaign, right?
That's correct. What I saw it appeared to be like it was from November, December, and January. And I hope that people pay attention to this. This is a real issue, and what I'm raising here is vital to national security. We cannot allow Americans' names to be either masked improperly or unmasked improperly. And we have a duty and a responsibility to get to the bottom to see if this was done properly or not.
Was there anything illegal?
It depends. We don't know yet. We do know that there was one name. The only crime that we know has been committed so far, assuming that General Flynn was picked up on some type of incidental collection, that was illegally leaked, if that is in fact the case, and that is
any other names illegally leaked, unmasked?
We don't know yet, but there are additional names that were unmasked.
Because previously you suggested there were.
Yeah, no. There are additional names that were unmasked, and that's what raised concern to me.
But you saw actual names in the reports you read at the White House complex?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear who they were talking about, what the reports were referring to.
But you were surmising, you were concluding who the names were. Did you actually see names?
For the most part, they were masked, but like I said, there was additional unmasking, which is why we're trying to get the intelligence agencies to cooperate and provide us the information so we can figure out who asked for that name to be unmasked and who the name was.
Because you say for the most part, elaborate. I want, if you could be specific, were there specific names that were inappropriately, if not illegally, unmasked?
So I don't know if, I think inappropriately is for sure the case. But what we should do here is we should wait until we get all the evidence to our committee. That's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for us to comb through it. But what I will say, and I'll be as clear as I can on this, it bothered me. As somebody who supports our national security apparatus, it bothered me that this level of information would be included in intelligence reports because it just wasn't necessary from my point of view. Legal or not.
Were the calls in question, the transition team calls, that individuals were unmasked, were they involving foreign governments intercepted by U.S. intelligence or discussions by foreign governments about calls they may have had with Trump officials?
I can't get into that because, as you know, a lot of what we do is classified in nature. But I will say that it had absolutely nothing to do with Russia. All the reports I saw had nothing to do with Russia, which is why I thought it was completely appropriate for me to the next day to go and talk to the president about this, and why I thought this needed his attention. And look, we had been asking we already suspected this. I mean, I had people who had already told me this existed. And we've been asking the agencies since March 15th to provide us the names that were unmasked.
But I know you have to go vote, and I'd love you to come back after you vote because there's a bunch of other questions I'd love to ask you.
This is a lot of questions.
I know it's a lot of questions, but this is important, and you have the answers. But very quickly before you vote, and hopefully you'll come right back after the vote, do you understand why it might have been better to avoid that kind of meeting at the White House?
Yeah, but look, when I went over there, I was expecting to see what had been described to me. I was not expecting to see what I saw, and that's why there was nothing clandestine about it. It was simply just going through there, saying hi to people, going in, looking at what I needed to look at, figuring out it had nothing to do with Russia at all. And had everything to do about American citizens being caught up in surveillance of some kind. And I thought that it was important for the president to know, and that's why the following day I went and briefed him.
One final question. I know you're going to go and vote. Those 4 tweets from 3 weeks ago that the president leveled those charges against President Obama for ordering the wiretapping of Trump Tower, you don't believe that, do you?
No. I mean, I said just days after that that it didn't happen. Days after that, and largely the media.
So he should not feel vindicated.
Well, look, I'm not going to get into how people feel or don't feel. I just know that I was very clear with all of the media and the American public that I didn't think that those tweets were accurate. However, I will say, I said this the whole time, I am concerned about additional unmasking and if any other surveillance activities were used. And look, clearly that appears to be the case in this matter.
Mr. Chairman, you've been very generous with your time. I know you got to run and vote. If you can come back, we'll continue this conversation. Thanks so much for joining us.